I'm looking at this giant figure, huge, 8 feet tall, non-human gait. I'm trying to classify what this thing is, but it's not real. And I know what it is, but what it is not real.
The arms of these things went well below their knees, unbelievably long arms.
When I looked up, there was a young male looking at me.
Something's going around my tent. It stops behind me, and then contact.
We tried. We really tried to get pictures, but these things seem to outfox us.
Something is leaving footprints.
As you start utilizing the data and you start seeing the data tell the story, the whole story unfolds right before your eyes.
From the historic Haunted Heartland in Omaha, Nebraska, my name is Brian Corey, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all, young and old, to this episode of Necronomicast, the finest in creepy conversations. All during July, I'm celebrating the summer of Sasquatch here on the show. And tonight, I'm very excited to have as guests the creative team of Brett Eichenberger and Tobe Johnson, who have created a fantastic brand new documentary entitled A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. It is a beautifully shot and produced and really a surprisingly heartfelt documentary of the Bigfoot phenomenon, and it highlights the emotional impact that a Sasquatch encounter leaves on its eyewitnesses. A Flash of Beauty, tonight on the Necronomicast. And now joining me on the Necronomicast, I have the pleasure of welcoming the filmmakers behind A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed, Tobe Johnson and Brett Eichenberger. Gentlemen, how are you?
Doing great, Brian.
I'm really excited for this late night conversation with you guys. I was putting together my programming for the year, and last summer I did Summer of the Shark, and I had some shark experts on, and so this year I wanted Summer of Sasquatch, and lo and behold, my friend Doug, hi Doug, emailed me, and he's like, "You got to watch this documentary that just came out." And so I watched it, and I scrambled to get you guys on the program in a timely manner to have you on. Congratulations on your documentary, guys. Well done. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So this is the first part of a planned 2-parter documentary. This one is A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. I know you guys grew up kind of in the Pacific Northwest area, but how did you guys come about like putting together this documentary? What fed this obsession with Bigfoot for you guys?
So, yeah, we, where do we start? So Jill and I, Jill's producer and writer, both her and I are native Oregonians, and we've been, really enamored by Bigfoot going back to childhood. She grew up in the Oregon coast, and behind her house was, hundreds of thousands, millions of acres of forest land. And for me, growing up in suburbia, anytime I left to go to the coast or go to the mountains or wherever, it was always on my mind, on the car ride, looking out through the forest, or anytime I went hiking or, recreating in the mountains. And so long story short is, we've been filmmakers for over 20 years, and we had always wanted to do a Bigfoot documentary. And as fate would have it, we were invited to kind of a secret meeting, if you will, or secret conference in 2012 through some friends of ours that were in the film business. And we got to know some of the players in the Bigfoot industry, or the Bigfoot world, I guess you could say, not industry. And we thought, wow, if we ever wanted to do a documentary, here are the folks to do it. So when the pandemic rolled around, we were a little short on work, like most people. And we thought, you know what, now's the time to do that documentary. And so we dived in head first. We thought it was going to take about 6 months, and it ended up taking almost 2 years to the release date. And here we are. The rest is history. Oh, let me back up real quick. Tobe became involved, and he can talk more about this, but Tobe became involved very early on. We knew immediately that we wanted to feature him and Daryl Adams. And so we contacted Tobe, and very early on, we decided that Tobe would be a wonderful co-producer alongside us.
Fantastic.
That's really the truth. I double checked everything you said, and it all checks out. So
Well, fantastic. So I got to hand to you guys. I watch a lot of Bigfoot's been really on my mind in a similar fashion since I was a kid. Scrambled to check out books in the library when they were available. Fell in love with the Patterson-Gimlin film. I've even had Bob Gimlin on the show here. I got to interview him a couple years back, and so that was a real crown jewel in the achievement of the program. And I just, kind of like yourself, like I went on ski trips to Colorado, and I'm always like looking out the bus window, looking to see if something's going to cross, the mountain path in front of us. I was always on a ski lift and looking to see if I could see something, peeking out behind me through the trees. Probably not a lot of Bigfoot opportunities here in suburban Omaha, Nebraska, the concrete jungle as it is, but just this fascination of nature and this elusive creature out there that's just been evading mankind for centuries. What I really liked about your documentary, and I've read tons of books, watched tons of documentaries and shorts and shows about Bigfoot. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to have a decidedly different take. And that is to focus on the people that have the eyewitness accounts. I mean, we can go back over time and look over the centuries, recorded history of tribes, ancient Americans, ancient citizens encountering these creatures. But to have these modern eyewitnesses look right at the camera and give like their honest, heartfelt impressions of what this encounter meant to them in their lives, how their lives have changed. It was such a human aspect of it that you don't see in scientific documentaries about the subject. So that's one thing that really drew me to your documentary, was the fact that there was such an emphasis on the personal experience with these creatures.
Yeah, and that's the important thing, is that these folks are having their lives changed by their experiences. And that's something that we felt, very early on, that we needed to highlight, that we needed to show that, there might not be scientific proof, legitimate, body on the table, if you will. I hate to use that analogy, but, that might not be out there, but we're seeing dramatic changes in people's lives because of their experiences. And so we felt like, getting that emotion was really key for some folks out there that are very much on the fence, or very skeptical, to really kind of start seeing, how this is impacting folks. And we all know that, having a bear sighting, or, a mountain lion sighting, or a wolverine, if you will, which is a very rare animal in the wild, having something like that is exciting, but that wears off after a few days. This doesn't. These folks will either not go back into the woods ever. We're talking about some lifelong hunters that will not go back into the woods, or we're talking about folks that can't wait to get back into the woods to see another one. So, but regardless, it's a change that's significant.
Sure. You have eyewitnesses. You also have some experts in the field, some respected researchers like Dr. Jeff Meldrum, even Ron Moorhead. I was great to see him make an appearance on the program. I always kind of, I read about him, and I've read about him for a long time, and the Sierra sounds and everything. And it was good to see him on camera talking about it, because usually hear about the Sierra sounds, and if listeners aren't aware, those are I'll just say alleged, but they're the recordings of Sasquatch, chatter, language, sounds from his kind of expeditions and encounters with them. So to have respected experts, like real experts, learned individuals, and also peoples whose experiences have shaped research over time. It was great to see that you guys had those people involved and well. How'd they come involved with it?
I'll talk about that a little bit, and then Tobe can kind of finish up. But this goes back to our relationships back in 2012 when we first met some folks like Todd Neese and Peter Byrne, and became friends. And so we were very lucky to be able to get folks like Ron Moorhead and a legend like Peter Byrne. Very lucky. And it was nice that, at the time Ron actually lived nearby. So we were able to drive up to Washington to interview him. Now he lives on the East Coast. But that was something that we thought was essential. Getting Dr. Meldrum was just luck. We were at Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah in September, and he had some time in the morning, and so we were able to nab him, and he did a wonderful job. We appreciate his contribution.
And these people are advocates for the witness, extensively looking through the last 15 years of looking into this. I was largely invested in the witness experience. That was all I really did. Yes, I wanted to get out and have my own experience, but, I was putting together these meetings at little mom and pa diners with witnesses where they would come once a month, relate their experience in front of a crowd on a Wednesday night. And it was those kind of experiences that, Brett knew that I had, not so much. It wasn't until later that we actually started having ongoing Sasquatch activity, but primarily it was these relationships I had with these witnesses. So when I saw Brett, and Jill and Mike making this film, and they focused primarily on witness testimony, and then they had these advocates for witness testimony like Peter Byrne and Ron and Jeff. That's exactly what we need in this community. First of all, as advocates, no matter where we are, as far as our perspective of what is going on, something is going on. And, for that, it makes this documentary so unique in so many ways.
And I like how you were talking about like advocates. When I had Bob Gimlin on, one thing that really struck me is, for years and years and years, he didn't talk much about the matter because of ridicule. And he was worried about, people were cruel about it, calling him a hoax, calling him a fraud, calling him a liar, and just taking this profound moment of his life, seeing this creature and actually getting wonderful, beautiful video of it, and how it kind of ruined a part of his life. It really altered his life. And going back again to your eyewitnesses and talking to them, there's such a human side of it. And I watch a lot of paranormal shows and talk to the paranormal experts of the day too. And there's so much emphasis on, flashing lights and beeping boxes and so-called evidence and things like that, that you don't get the story from the ghost hunters about how seeing an apparition really changes their life. So again, the human side of it was something that I thought was remarkable, and how you guys found all these eyewitnesses that were, really into talking about it. Did you have to coax or reassure, or, when people sharing their stories? I mean, I'm sure some of them were kind of hesitant and they need to be assured that you were going to take it seriously and treat them with dignity. Can you talk about how like the aspect of like getting trust of these witnesses was paramount to your show?
Yes. So that was an advantage that we had, that we brought from the narrative filmmaking world. And, as a director, I know how vulnerable actors can be, especially doing very emotional scenes. And one of the keys to success in getting a good performance out of an actor is to build that trust. And if they feel like they can trust you, and they know that you have their best intentions in mind, they will give it their all. And going into these eyewitness accounts and speaking with people, it's like, we want to build trust. We want to let them know that this is a passion project for us. Our heart is in it. This is not, something that we're doing primarily for work or for money or anything else. This is something that is important to get on the record. It's important to share with the rest of humanity. It's an important story for humanity. And so we want them to be as comfortable as possible. And, you're right, Brian. Some of those folks we had to work a little bit and make sure that they knew and understood that we had their best intentions in mind before they agreed to go on camera. And I hesitate to say that there probably wasn't more than a couple of people that weren't nervous to go on camera. This is a difficult thing to talk about. And, there were a few witnesses that had held it back from even telling their spouse because they were afraid of the ridicule and stuff. So, through the courage and the bravery of these folks going on camera and talking about this, we feel like it might help open the doors for other people out there that have been keeping these secrets for years at a time. And that would be a huge sea change in this realm, if you will, if these folks can come out and start talking about these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I also think is important to bring up is how much this affects the Native American community too. You do a great job in the documentary of showing the history of the relationship of these creatures, or sometimes they're referred to as brother tribe, things like that, with the Native American community, and how this has kind of been a relationship for centuries, how they've always been a part of not only their folklore, but their art, their just everything about their culture. I mean, you even do a good job explaining about totem poles and the stories that they relate to people, visual depiction of their histories and what's important to their community. And we all look like we're of European descent. Did you guys have any kind of hesitation from people in the Native American community to tell their stories or to kind of relate this to you guys when you're putting this together?
Yeah, I'll tackle that real quick. And I know Tobe has got some thoughts to add on the culture, the Native American culture as well. Yes, we did have some folks that were a little bit nervous to speak to us, and we wanted to really try hard to get fair representation. We had Mel Skahan, who is a wonderful man from the Yakima tribe, and Mel will be appearing in the sequel as well. And we're also working on, some more Native representation in the sequel, which is extremely important to us. But yeah, it's, a lot of these are close cultures. And so they keep their information, pretty close to themselves, which is understandable. And we talk about that in the film, about how they will even keep some of this information exclusive to their tribe. They don't share it with other tribes.
Right. And I get a little apprehensive even talking on behalf of the First Nations people, just based upon the fact that they do hold information in different regard than we do. And we get into the particulars on how that works via almost a copyright based upon their oral tradition from longhouse to longhouse through a guy named Henry Franzoni, actually, a scientist named Henry Franzoni up here in Washington. Henry was actually the first guy that kind of led me through the doorways of approaching Native Americans generally. He wrote a book called The Spirit of Siatko, which gets into place names to experience Sasquatch. And he's worked hand in hand with First Nations people in Washington and Oregon. And so to have him on film, I think the last Bigfoot documentary that Henry Franzoni was in was probably circa, the mid 80s. Mm. And he's just an incredible but silent voice in this community. And that's what you see throughout this documentary is you see new faces, you hear new things, things that aren't being discussed or brought up, including the psychological ramifications. You talked a little bit about Bob Gimlin, who's also, I believe, I forget, I know he's Native American. I forget which tribe he's from, but you ask him something privately, it differs to what he might say publicly. But there again, you have the trust of these people based upon you showing integrity. And this is such a tight community that had Brett, Jill, and Mike stepped out of line doing this documentary, word would have traveled so quick that it would have been so difficult to secure a Peter Byrne interview, so difficult to get the likes of Ron Moorhead to sit down with him. So that just hasn't happened. And, we joke around that Bigfoot is actually part of the film crew right now, calling the shots and directing the scenes. So it's kind of silly to say, but I actually think it's true.
Yeah, for sure. Because like we mentioned, the people that you have speaking on your documentary and the people that you interview, you're right. Word would travel fast if this was for a quick buck or, being exploitive or something like that. Just having those people on with what they say. And I'm always walking a line like, I want people to be interested in your documentary, but I don't want to give stuff away. So, and it just came out. So this isn't something that's years old. I mean, this just came out like not even 2 months ago, I think. When you're putting together like a documentary, and I ask this of a lot of documentary filmmakers, I know you have like your concept and you know what you want to kind of put together. But are you ever surprised with like a happy surprise or like, oh man, that didn't go as well as I planned? Like when you're putting together a documentary, like taking a left turn and going to another direction because, oh my gosh, this just dropped into our lap, or this witness has said something. And does it totally alter or skew a little bit of like your production schedule or what you're doing, trying to get the message across?
Yes, absolutely. Because you have to follow, in our case, we followed our hearts. We followed our instincts. And absolutely changes the film. We had a different ending in mind for this movie. And then we met Daryl Wilson. And that was the emotional eyewitness account that we could only dream of. And, especially with Daryl's bout with cancer. That was extraordinary. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. And we thought we had a strong documentary before we met Daryl. We were very happy. But there were multiple occasions, and these occasions are occurring to this very day, working on the sequel, where things will pop up. I call them, some folks might call them serendipitous or coincidences, but we don't believe in that. And just to kind of echo what Tobe just said, it feels like Bigfoot or something else is there's an invisible hand that's kind of guiding us in this direction. And so, we know better to write a script going into this. What we do is we have key points that we want to hit. We have an outline and we follow that outline. And we know that if we come across something that fits within those parameters, then we're going to jump on it. We're going to go for it. This past weekend, we had that just that same opportunity, and we hopped in a car and we drove down to Sacramento and back. It's a 10-hour drive each way in order to get this interview because the timing, just everything lined up perfect. So that happened, more times than I can count on the production of this film.
And that is so rare to have a film company jump in their car and do an interview like that. I've been down this road at least twice now. And generally speaking, a production company wants you to bend over backwards for their schedule. And just, at the end of the day, you don't know what you've done. You're not a part of the editing process. You have no idea. It's not like that at all with this team here. They go out of their way to make sure that the eyewitness feels listened to, and that their schedule is taken importance. So if you should ever be interviewed by Brett or Jill, they will take good care of you.
Very good.
We promise.
Well, even the title of the film, A Flash of Beauty, comes from a quote from one of your interviews. And what a great title, because if I'm thinking about him, I'm out. I love the woods. Let me back that up. I love looking at the woods. I'm like I said, I'm a city slicker. I can go in an abandoned building or a cemetery or some alleged haunted location, no problem. But you get me out in the middle of nowhere. Very scary. But even the title of your documentary, A Flash of Beauty, and it comes from a gentleman talking about how seeing this mythical, I guess you could use that word, but seeing this elusive creature, we don't know what it is, but just seeing it, and that was the flash of beauty, just seeing this unique experience. It was a great way that the title was revealed. And when you're talking about, these opportunities that kind of present themselves and you don't believe in coincidence, that's kind of a mantra on this show, is that all a coincidence is things that seem to be related, but we don't know why. So people are quick to dismiss them. Like, oh, that's just a coincidence. Well, no, these things are related, but we just don't know the reason why. We're kind of hinting at your sequel a little bit here, But you guys do have plans for a sequel, and you kind of, on the title card at the end, you revealed that the title is more of a paranormal nature of Bigfoot, which is something that interests me greatly. What are your thoughts, or like what's guiding you as you kind of create and continue this story? And I guess we're going to be heading into the paranormal. You don't need to give too much away, but what's kind of guiding you as you kind of explore that side of the story?
Again, I'll take this first half, and I know Tobe has got a bunch to contribute to this question. What's guiding us is the data, the eyewitness accounts, the emotions. What happened is we ended up with our first edit of A Flash of Beauty was close to 5 hours long. And that was because we were including the paranormal in this first documentary. And we quickly realized that we were not going to be able to do that. And by cutting this important information, this important data, we felt like we'd be doing a disservice to the stories that are out there. Now, it's important to remember that the Bigfoot community is divided between two groups. One group believes that they're apes, they're flesh and blood apes. And the other group believes in the quote unquote woo, or the paranormal side of things. And the truth of the matter is that if we skew the story and leave out the paranormal, we're not telling the truth. We're not being honest. And we need to do that, and we hear a lot of people poo-pooing this all the time. But the truth is that people are seeing this stuff. A lot of people are really afraid to come forward. They'll talk about their Bigfoot experience, but they'll leave out the fact that they saw orbs, or they had mind speak, or, saw a Sasquatch disappear before their very eyes. And this is happening on a grand scale. And we're seeing some very interesting correlations to other paranormal phenomenon. And this is very interesting. In fact, we had a guy tell us this weekend that he, during a profound Bigfoot experience with mind speak and everything else, he thinks he saw a ghost. It's about the same time. So there's an energy that's happening that's unlocking this universe that is enabling us to be able to see these things that we might not, they might be there, but we might not be able to see. And so we're trying to get to the bottom of it.
When Brett found me, he found me in the company of an extended experiencer, which what I mean by that is someone who has Bigfoot on a constant basis, a guy by the name of Daryl Adams. So this extended experiencer basically extended his hand to me to live on the property and write a book and research. And so we came to call this place the Owl Moon Lab. And so as I wrote the story, the Owl Moon Lab, it was chronicled as the events were happening. So the book was just writing itself. And we could not ignore the details of the strange and unusual. It was very difficult to ignore them when such things as not only Bigfoot were happening, but constant gifts of significance arriving inside the house or outside the house, very strange items, animal mutilations, UFOs, ghosts, historical lore that went back maybe before the Native Americans about the land having some kind of spiritual name coined for some people that lived out there that I believe knew that there were Sasquatch all along and wrote a book about it. So it's very interesting little piece of property out in the Umpqua wilderness. And I kind of knew what was going to unfold to a certain degree, but the amount of activity that happened out there, I could not even account for it. So, bold claims need bold evidence. Well, we tried to provide as much of that, but the best way to provide evidence is to give other people experiences. And that's where, Jill and Brett and Mike were the perfect people because they had the best cameras. They obviously didn't just go into it believing everything that we claimed. What it would take is them to go to this place and have experiences without us. And so that's what's happening now is that they have their own little private research area. And now they can vouch for the craziness on their own.
Amazing. So you guys started kind of going down the paranormal road with the production of this first feature. Now we're working towards a second. Do you have a timetable on a release to that, or like how far in the process are you in making another documentary?
We're decently far because we're going to be using some extra portions of the interviews that people have already seen. We'll be using the paranormal sections. So we have that shot, which is amounting to, quite a bit of footage. There are some things that are developing now, some more eyewitness accounts that are just frankly unbelievable. And so we're getting those. We're interviewing a scientist here in a couple of weeks who is going to start talking about some of the, the breaking scientific research and theory that's happening right now. And believe it or not, some of this correlates with some of the work that's happening today at the Large Hadron Collider. They're looking for some of the same particles that this scientist might be involved in some of the physics, some of the quantum physics that are causing these Bigfoot to be able to do what they do. If that makes sense. So we're trying to stay up on the science. We're trying to stay cutting edge. We want to be, as current as possible. So we're looking at, sometime next spring is the goal to have this thing out.
That's fantastic. And I'll make sure to link to your avenues of watching this film, and everything. I'll make sure to link it from my website and everything. Is there physical release, like DVD, Blu-rays of these releases?
We're working on that right now. Yeah. So we're hoping to have both of them available as soon as possible.
And there's GoFundMe and Kickstarter involved. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have a GoFundMe account, and that's just, we've put that together because travel expenses are, skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Really? I think they're probably 30 to 40% higher than they were when we shot the initial film. And we paid for this out of our pocket. This is coming out of our pocket. And so, if somebody's got $5 to $10 or whatever, to head our way to cover a meal or part of a hotel room, we completely appreciate it.
Sure. And I just want to point out that, like I said, my friend Doug pointed out this documentary to me, and you guys weren't like reaching out to everybody like, hey, get us on your show, get us on your show. Like, I sought you out because I watched it and I thought it was quality. There's a great cinematic quality to it. I can tell you guys have experience in putting together things visually, because it has the way you frame shots, the drone shots, the footage that you were talking about that you spent all this time putting together. You allow the majesty of the outdoors and just how breathtaking it is. You really allow that to be a star of the show. So I was impressed not only with how it looked, and I was impressed with the quality of the interviews and just the production and everything. You brought him up earlier, and that was Daryl Wilson, the man that survived a bout with cancer. And like I said, I don't give away too much, but his story is very important to the show, especially to the end. What I liked about it is the humanness of it, and how, we talked about how these Bigfoot encounters, paranormal encounters, really change people's lives because it forces them to confront realities, especially things like life after death. It makes people confront those kind of realities in such an unusual way that it's unique to themselves. These paranormal, these encounters are very unique to themselves. What was it like, or how did you get to meet Daryl and getting his story? So
Daryl, again, was one of those situations where it just happened. It just came together. And Jill and I were at Phenomenon last September, and we will be there this year as well. We'll actually be doing a screening of Flashopedia Phenomenon this year. But we were out there because I felt like we had to be. It was weird. It was just this. I felt like this pull. I can't even describe it. I told Jill, I said, we have to go. We just have to go. I don't know why we have to go. And, Dr. Meldrum was going to be out there and whatnot, but Phenomenon is more about all phenomenon. It was pretty heavy on Skinwalker Ranch because that occurs in Vernal. So there was a couple of folks there for Bigfoot, but there was that pull. So we headed out there, and we kind of had, they had speakers kind of going on concurrently, and Jill and I decided to divide and conquer. And I said, well, I'm going to go listen to this guy, Daryl Wilson, and see what his experience is all about. And so I went and I heard him talk, and, Daryl was pretty rusty. He's just he's born and bred in Vernal, Utah, and he's just an ordinary guy, very ordinary guy. So I went and listened to him talk, and I thought, this is like one of the most incredible encounters I've ever heard. And so I pulled him aside and I said, listen, we're out here, we got some cameras. Would you be interested in doing an interview? And he was a little reluctant at first, but we got to know each other over the course of the next day or two. And he finally, agreed to do it. And we went out to his place and we interviewed him. And we were just completely blown away with his story, with his candor, with just the fact that he wanted to do this for other folks out there that were too nervous to talk about it. He wanted to be able to kind of be the, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, he just wanted to kind of be the motivation, I guess you could say, for those folks out there that are reluctant to share their stories. So, we felt like, Daryl even said to me, he says, I think this is divine intervention. And that could be true. We don't know, but there was some intervention of some sort, whether it was divine or spiritual or a combination thereof. I'm not sure, but we feel like it was meant to be.
What I liked about it is that, like I said, we were talking about the humanness of these encounters and how you focus on these eyewitnesses and how it changes people's lives. He was facing cancer, and you guys don't shy away from that with the camera, the toll it took on his body. Having him on there and talk about this experience and how, not that seeing Bigfoot gave him hope, but how it opened up his eyes. Earlier, you're talking about engaging the universe and kind of opening yourself up to these experiences. But it kind of opened up his life to his reality of being stricken with cancer and kind of gave him like more of a worldview, more of a universal view of life, and without bringing like God into it, but bringing more of, there's more to life out there than what we experience in the minutia of our day. And having him on and talking about how this experience changed his life, his eyes almost like sparkle with awe. You just kind of opened up a different side of the human experience here on Earth that I thought was very well done. And I don't know how much of it was just you guys just setting up the camera and letting them go on and on. But what a remarkable spirit, and what a way to close out the show.
Thank you. Yeah. It was an incredible experience just to be there behind the camera. That's how lucky we are is to be there behind the camera. That's an interview that was extremely difficult to edit because really, frankly, everything Daryl said was important, and somewhere down the line, hopefully sooner than later, we will be releasing these interviews in their raw form. We'll be taking out, the blips and the blaps and so on and so forth. But for the most part, we want to get all of these interviews out because it's unfortunate for us to have to cut some of these details out. We do have a running time that we need to kind of try and stick to. But we do want the information to get out there, and the folks that are in the film agree with us. So that's coming down the line sometime soon. But Daryl's story about the cancer and how he faced it and how his experience, like you said, really gave him hope, was nothing short of extraordinary. There's no question about it. And it's so applicable to me, to other facets of our lives, and I think one of the morals of Daryl's story is that you just don't know what the future holds. You don't know what the future holds. And frankly, you just don't know what's out there. He shows that if you go through life with an open mind, you're going to get so much more out of life.
Oh, amen. Absolutely. And about that ending, without giving away spoilers, because I know you guys have been asked a lot about the ending and how you put the ending together. It concludes or includes an interview with his daughter and talking about her relationship with her dad and how his cancer diagnosis, affected their relationship. And then she had her own encounter that she tells you the story, and there's photographic evidence from that encounter and whatnot. When you guys were putting that together, how carefully did you have to consider putting that in at the end? You know what I mean? Because you kind of allude to it masterfully earlier with her telephone call to dad, and he saved it on the answer machine that she, had this encounter. When you kind of put that in there and you frame it with the narrative of, yeah, it's a Bigfoot encounter, but it's also a relationship with a man coming to terms with his mortality. It's also a relationship story with a man and his daughter and her ex-husband and just all that. Like, can you kind of maybe briefly talk about how that becomes part of a Bigfoot documentary?
Yeah. So this is kind of a complicated one, Brian. So I just want to kind of like address the elephant in the room on, with this as well too, because, there's a lot of folks out there that have seen the photos and they just assume that it's a man in a suit. And that's the obvious, important knee-jerk reaction. And it's important in this world of Bigfoot for us to scrutinize evidence. We 100% agree with that. And, I asked Rachel if those photos were a man in a suit, if she thought they were a man in a suit. And she said no. And so we found Rachel because, obviously Daryl told us the story about her. And so I said, I would love to talk to her. And so we went back, Mike Ferry and I went back to Utah a couple of months after Daryl's interview. And we sat Rachel down. We got her entire testimony. In fact, her entire testimony is on YouTube right now because I wanted to give people the opportunity to really hear her encounter. Because, even though her father had this poignant Bigfoot experience, she was still on the fence. And part of that had to do with the fact that she lived in Alaska for 5 or 6 years and had never seen anything, although she heard stories every single day about the hairy man. So she had her experience. It made her a believer. And we, whether we think it's an individual in a suit or not isn't important. We wanted to leave it to the audience to decide because her testimony is so important. It is so convincing. Logistically speaking, it would be very, very complicated for somebody to be out there in a suit. It would take quite a bit of work. So we're leaving that open to the audience. But regardless, it's still a very important testimony, if nothing else, because it's a father-daughter relationship. And we see that human element. We see how, her life was changed, his life was changed. And I think that's important for people to see and to understand. So you may not believe it. You may believe it. We've had a mix of both. It's almost like maybe a 50-50 split to this point. I mean, we have had some very emotional reactions on both sides. There's no question about it.
Well, fantastic. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys taking the time to speak with me today. And like I said, I thought I had my whole show for the summer planned out. Kind of like when you come across new footage for your documentary, you got to include. But when I saw that and I reached out, I was like, man, I hope that these guys are able to join me on the program. And I know you guys are getting inundated with requests and everything, but for you guys to take the time out of your schedule, not only for people's reaction to your first movie, but you're in the thick of making the second one. What a treat to have you guys on the program, because I really enjoyed it. And like I said, Thank you. I've seen many documentaries, and a lot of them, you watch and you're like, well, that's interesting, or like, that sucks. but I could tell that you guys put this together with love and respect, and you treated people with dignity. That's very important to me in this program. That you're not exploiting an issue, or you're not trying to, do things just for Facebook or Twitter likes and, YouTube subscriptions, that you actually care about this and you care about the people that you're interviewing. And you put together a documentary that I'm going to watch. I hope you put it on physical media pretty soon, because I'd love to have 2 autographed copies when they're available. I hope that's part of a campaign where we can get some autographed copies of the physical media and put it on my shelf, because it's something I'm going to revisit as time goes on. Not only just for the content, but just the beauty of the woods. It's its own character. The outdoors is almost like its own character, its own element of the film. So my hat's off to you guys.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it.
And guys, I hope you consider joining me on again when we can talk about more of the paranormal side of Bigfoot.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Great.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining me on the Necronomicast.
Thanks, Brian.
Hey, there we go, kids. Episode 229, A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed. Fantastic. What a month. Sasquatch all summer long on Necronomicast. Now, beginning with episode 230 in a couple weeks, I'm going to have retired homicide detective Chris Anderson and criminal defense attorney Fatima Silva. They are the hosts of Reasonable Doubt on Investigation Discovery, Discovery Plus. They're going to be talking about their careers, the world of true crime as they've experienced it, and their new season of Reasonable Doubt coming out. So, run, don't walk to your television sets. Turn on Reasonable Doubt and let's get busy. Gonna have a lot of true crime in September, August. October is gonna be back to the grind of the paranormal. Wait till you see what I've got in store for you. Holy cow. My friend Andrew Vogt playing saxophone in the background there. Everybody, thanks for listening. Like and subscribe. Do what you can to help the show. I appreciate everything you do. Andrew, take us out, my man. Get some sleep, everybody. Bye.